Have you ever achieved something important? Started a new business? Lost weight? Found a great relationship? Or finally begun improving your life, only to hear someone say, "You got lucky, didn't you?" Or, "Are you sure it's going to last?" At first, those questions seem harmless. Maybe they even sound supportive. But psychology tells us something fascinating. The most jealous people rarely reveal their jealousy openly. They don't say, "I envy you." They don't admit, "Your success bothers me." Instead, jealousy hides. It disguises itself as curiosity, as concern, as advice, and sometimes even as a compliment. But behind certain questions lies something much darker: comparison, insecurity, and a silent desire to pull you back down. Friedrich Nietzsche believed that envy appears when people are confronted with someone who dares to become more than they are. Because every visible success forces others to face an uncomfortable question. If they can do it, why haven't I? In this video, you'll discover 5 questions jealous people almost always ask. Questions that seem innocent on the surface, but reveal far more than most people realize. And the 5th question is the one that exposes hidden jealousy almost instantly. Once you recognize these signals, you'll never hear these conversations the same way again. Before we begin, it's important to understand one thing. Jealousy is rarely obvious. Most people imagine jealousy as open hostility, criticism, or resentment. But real jealousy is often much quieter. In fact, some of the most jealous people you'll ever meet may smile at you, congratulate you, and ask all the right questions. Yet beneath the surface, something else is happening. Because every success story creates a comparison, and comparison is where jealousy begins. Let's look at the first question. Number 1. You got lucky, didn't you? This is probably the most common question jealous people ask, and it sounds harmless. After all, luck exists, timing matters, opportunities matter. But notice what happens when someone immediately attributes your success to luck. They remove your effort from the equation. The late nights, the sacrifices, the failures, the years of learning. Suddenly, none of that matters. Instead, your success becomes an accident, a coincidence, something that simply happened to you. Why? Because accepting that you earned your success creates an uncomfortable problem for them. If your success came from discipline, persistence, and courage, then they must confront their own choices. And many people would rather believe in luck than face that reality. Nietzsche understood this deeply. He believed that people often resent those who remind them of what they could become. Your success becomes a mirror, and not everyone likes what they see in that reflection. So when someone says, "You got lucky, didn't you?" listen carefully. Sometimes they aren't questioning your success. They're protecting their ego. Number 2, are you sure it's going to last? At first glance, this sounds like concern. A caring friend might genuinely ask this. But jealousy changes the meaning. Because jealous people often focus on the possibility of your downfall instead of celebrating your success. You find happiness? They talk about how quickly happiness can disappear. You start a business. They mention failure statistics. You improve your health. They remind you that most people regain the weight. It's as if they cannot enjoy your victory without imagining your defeat. Why does this happen? Because your progress creates tension inside them. Your growth highlights their stagnation. Your courage highlights their hesitation. Your success becomes evidence that change is possible. And that can be deeply uncomfortable. Psychologists call this social comparison. People naturally compare themselves to others. But insecure people become trapped in those comparisons. Instead of being inspired by your growth, they feel threatened by it. And so they begin planting seeds of doubt. Not because they want to help you, but because your confidence reminds them of what they lack. Number 3, how much do you actually make? Money is one of the fastest ways to expose hidden jealousy. Notice how certain people become unusually interested in your finances after you start succeeding. Not before, after. The question seems innocent, but often it has very little to do with curiosity. What they're really asking is, where do I rank compared to you? Because jealousy loves numbers. Numbers create hierarchy. Numbers create comparison. Numbers create winners and losers. And jealous people become obsessed with measuring themselves against others. If your income is lower than expected, they feel relieved. If your income is higher than expected, they become uncomfortable. Sometimes they change the subject. Sometimes they minimize it. Sometimes they search for reasons why it doesn't count. But the emotional reaction tells the real story. A person who is genuinely secure doesn't need to measure their worth against yours. They can celebrate your success without feeling diminished by it. Jealous people struggle to do that because your achievements feel like evidence of their own inadequacy, and that's why they keep comparing, even when it hurts them. Number 4, aren't you afraid of failing? This is one of the most deceptive questions of all because it sounds wise, responsible, practical, but often it reveals something very different: projection. The jealous person is usually speaking about their own fears. They imagine all the reasons they would never take the risk, all the reasons they would never start the business, never pursue the dream, never leave the toxic relationship, never make the move, and then they project those fears onto you. What sounds like advice is often anxiety in disguise. Nietzsche believed that greatness requires the courage to step beyond comfort, to create your own path, to risk failure, to risk judgment, to risk uncertainty. Most people never do. And when they see someone who does, they experience a mixture of admiration and resentment. Part of them respects your courage. Another part resents it, because your actions expose their excuses. That's why this question appears so often. It isn't really about your fear, it's about theirs. Number 5, why you? This is the question that sits beneath all the others. Sometimes it is spoken, most of the time it isn't, but it exists. Why him? Why her? Why not me? This is the true heart of jealousy. Not hatred, not anger. Comparison. The jealous person sees your result, but not your journey. They see the promotion, but not the years of effort. They see the relationship, but not the emotional growth. They see the success, but not the sacrifices. And because they only see the outcome, it feels unfair. Life appears unequal, unjust, biased. But every visible achievement hides invisible struggles. Every successful person has paid a price that most people never witness. And that is what jealousy fails to understand. It focuses on outcomes while ignoring process, the result while ignoring the sacrifice, the victory while ignoring the battle. This is why jealous people often feel like victims of life. They compare destinations while ignoring the roads that led there. So what should you do when you encounter jealousy? First, stop over-explaining yourself. You don't need to convince people that your success is legitimate. Second, stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. Many people downplay their achievements because they fear triggering jealousy, but hiding your light never solves the problem. Third, recognize that jealousy often has very little to do with you. Most of the time, you're simply triggering unresolved insecurities in someone else. Fourth, protect your energy. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your life. Not everyone needs to know your plans, your goals, or your next move. And finally, keep moving forward, because the best response to jealousy is not argument, it's progress. The truth is that jealousy has become more common than ever. We live in a world where everyone can see everyone else's highlights. Social media has turned comparison into a daily habit. People compare relationships, careers, appearances, money, status, followers, success. And the more comparison grows, the more jealousy grows with it. This is why emotional intelligence matters. The ability to recognize hidden motives, to understand human behavior, to see beyond words and notice what is really being communicated. Remember this: jealous people rarely say, "I envy you." Instead, they ask questions. Questions that minimize, questions that doubt, questions that compare, questions that reveal far more about them than about you. And perhaps the most important lesson of all is this: the jealousy of others is often evidence that you are growing. evidence that you are changing, evidence that you are moving in a direction they have not yet found the courage to follow. As Nietzsche might have said, your responsibility is not to make others comfortable. Your responsibility is to become who you are capable of becoming, and that will always disturb those who have abandoned their own potential. Not because there is something wrong with your success, but because your success reminds them of their possibilities. And for some people, that is the hardest truth of all.